again, just to give our viewers an idea, Jerry, give us an idea of the test plots you have around that you take a look at and all the repetitions that go on there.
Yeah, it's all a very complex experiment, because as we try to understand the dynamics of this and look at stabilized materials, we actually have 16 different nitrogen treatments in these plots. And we look at everything from volatilization of nitrogen that goes off as ammonia, as well as nitrous oxide. We also measure what happens in the plant in terms of its color, how much yield it makes, with the yield components. So we bring all that together, and these plots are actually replicated 5 times, because we're really trying to understand not only the variability across the field, but what causes all of these things to happen within a plant.
One of the things in the video that stuck with me after leaving there is that you talked about the effects of the nitrogen stabilization in the plant, and showing the shredded plants from either by wind or some hail damage, and you made the mention that the less surface area you have, the more important that plant stays green, that you have the leafy, the greenness, which is the chlorophyll, keeping that in the plant for its use to try to maximize yield. I want you to maybe spend some more time on that, if you would. It's
a very interesting process when you think about that plants are the ultimate solar collectors. I mean, what we're really doing is we're taking light, we're putting it into the leaf chlorophyll, and that creates the sugars that then we ultimately put into the grain. And when you look at those green leaves that we saw in the video, if we've got shredded leaves that are less than green, they're even less efficient. And so when we start looking at leaf greenness, one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we can keep that leaf as green as long as possible out there. Because the more efficient that factory is, and that's really the way we need to think about it as a factory, the greenness is an indication of the health of that factory. And so as it maintains a green leaf color like we see on this slide here, this happens to be one of our studies from in 2009 on corn following corn. The lower graph is, the lower yellow line is AGROTAIN, and the upper line was the AGROTAIN UAN plus AGROTAIN plus. What we see is that in those plots, the green leaf area remained longer, and what happened in those is that we actually had our yield increase because we had larger kernels. We had the higher weight per 100 kernels in those, and so adding a few grams per 100 kernels adds to a lot of bushels at the end of the season. And you showed the 2 ears of corn to me that day, and simply put, the ear not filled to the end, and the main reason was there wasn't the nitrogen available that the plant needed at that time. Right. If you look at those 2 ears, just going back to those, typical difference in weight per 100 kernels may be about 28 grams on that full ear, and about 25 grams per 100 kernels. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but that makes about a 15 to 20 bushel difference in yield. And Martin, you were at Farm Progress Show and did a great job. Good to see you there as well. And you were taking growers around to the AGROTAIN test plot and exhibit area, and share some of those. I know you enjoyed that, and you were kind of like a tour guide.
We were tour guides. We're taking the growers through and showing them the instrumentation that Dr. Hatfield had put out there, discussing the instrumentation and what it meant, because it was a study in greenhouse gases, which is nitrogen loss to the atmosphere, if you will. If you lose it to the atmosphere, you don't get it into the crop. We were very excited about the results that we're seeing, and the farmers were too, and what it translated into as far as yield results in their field. So they were had a lot of questions, and were very interested in the plot work. And I'm curious what you've seen and what you've heard from growers who used AGROTAIN to protect them against these weather volatility that we talked about, whether it be hot, too wet. Some of the reactions that you got, some of the comments. Well, we were seeing a lot of good comments this year. I mean, our technology has been growing, but we have Super U and AGROTAIN Plus, which are dual stabilizer type products, and we saw a lot of good results in Iowa and in Minnesota and Wisconsin and Illinois, where that excess rain really translated into big yield differences when they used stabilized nitrogen technology like AGROTAIN and AGROTAIN Plus and Super U. Also had some, because of the yellow corn all year, we had some guys putting AGROTAIN treated urea out is, I call it either late side dress or even rescue treatments for their corn that were suffering so severely with lack of nitrogen. And we had just outstanding results with that treatment, which was kind of an unorthodox treatment for some of my territory, going out that late with urea on corn. And where they put AGROTAIN with it, it was a significant yield advantage over untreated or
Sure.
unstable nitrogen.